As you see me now, I was when I was 3, I was when I was 5, I was when I went through puberty, as I am today. But I have opened the closet door and stepped out. About the age of 3, sitting in a little grassy spot, and there was this rotating clothesline, and my mother was hanging up clothes. And I was sitting there watching her, and it all came to light when she pinned up a certain article of clothing. That was the trigger. And that article of clothing was a bra. It was the typical really early 50s, had all the circular stitching on the cup. It was pointed, cotton. They didn't have the high-tech materials that we have today. I watched her hang it up, and I right then knew one day I would have mine. When I hit puberty, that's when everything woke up. And it woke up hard. It's like dealing with a monster almost. It was bigger than me almost. But when we moved to Michigan, when Dad retired from the service, we moved into my grandparents' large house, big house. It was 3 stories. And they had converted an old attic into my bedroom. Okay, and guess what color they painted it when we got there? It was peach. Perfect. As far as I was concerned, it was the color. Until Mom painted it blue. They decided that blue would be a better color. But they did find some little fluorescent stars. We put stars on the ceiling so they would glow at night. In there were stored prom dresses, unused blouses and skirts, a treasure trove to me. And when I got in there looking, and I could get around back in the old portion of the attic, I found a steamer's trunk. And in that trunk, my grandmother had put some of her old clothing. This clothing was of the period of the early 30s, the 20s, 1910. And it was her nightgowns, corsetry, and that was better than a chest of gold. When the house was empty, this little mouse would become a girl.
What was the feeling for that little mouse when she discovered that trunk?
One word I can come up with is luscious. Once I almost got caught because I went to sleep, and when Dad would open the door at the bottom of the stairs and holler, it was a good thing he didn't come upstairs to holler because I was still wearing lingerie. I had a friend, and we bummed around a lot together.
What age are we talking?
12, 13. And over to his house and doing stuff, and I had to use the restroom. And it was the one upstairs was using, so I went there and I used it, and I was sitting on the potty. I've always sat on the potty. You won't find us standing up. Mm-hmm. And laying on the floor over there was, in a little pile, was a red something, looked wet. And when I was off, I looked at it and held it up and thought to myself, try it on. So I did. And I liked it. So I just put my clothes on over it.
And whose was it?
It was my friend's sister's one-piece red bathing suit. Nothing fancy, but it was feminine. It was a new experience. Always looking for the new experience. And I don't remember what happened to it because I know I kept it. Sometimes we can put them back, but what we will do is put them back, hopefully in a little dark place where they haven't looked, but will eventually. You know how you always find something in the last place you look. We use that place a lot. Class picture, everybody dressed up for it. There was a little girl I figured I liked. We never played together that I recall, but what I do remember is her dress. And I remember the bodice was horizontal, what they call pin tucking across it. And it occurred to me years later and closer to an adult life that it wasn't the little girl I was interested in, it was the dress. It's a secret you don't tell. You just don't tell. Today it's easier because we have children. But in those days, my dad always went by the opinion, children should be seen and not heard. In the era that I grew up, it wasn't acceptable. A lot of things were not acceptable. The jokes were, those hurt, even if they weren't directed at me or my community. Most of them were directed towards the black community. But I never heard any because this community, mine, wasn't out. The gays weren't out. The lesbians weren't out. The transgender, the cross-dressers weren't out. The first that ever happened, that ever publicized, was Christine Jorgensen. I don't think that woman ever knew what she did, what came after. It was, if you took and blew away the Hoover Dam, the flow of water that would follow. There's a poem in there you probably read, The Loss of Their Child. That poem was inspired by a young school child. The child was in Muskegon. You may remember this, I don't know. The child was transgender M to F and came out to her parents. I will use her because that is the proper gender marker to use. She was accepted by her parents. She was accepted in the school, even by some of her friends. The doctors were working. This child had a clear road into the world she wanted to go. I don't know what happened. She took her life.
How old was she?
I don't think she was a teenager yet.
So you saw the article and you were
I
inspired.
heard about it. I heard the news on TV. And the poem just, like the rest of them do, they just are there. And I have to write them down now. I can sort the words out later.
What is your hope for kids today? moving forward.
That somebody does something for them so they do have a smooth path and hopefully prevent the loss of another life because of the community they belong to. And that's not just for trans, that is for a gay, a lesbian, a black, a white. It does not matter. It's for a person who is different somehow. And that's why it doesn't say in that poem, is because it's inclusive. Everybody has a closet.